Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Vagrant Queen. A great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, I like what they did with this episode, kind of bouncing back between like 22 years ago, like the time frame, and just kind of like a lot of kind of giving us some interesting backstory on Alita's mom. Just obviously, just everything present day. Like obviously, it's the showdown with Lazaro and everything. Obviously, Alita's trying to find him, and just obviously, literally everyone around kind of like the galaxy is kind of losing their shit just because it's like, well, in particular on Areopa, but like obviously it's the thing of like, well, what's this mean for the rest of the universe? So like obviously everyone's kind of on pins and needles because it's like, well, if all the leaders dead, it's like, are the people going to take control, or is it going to be a situation of us giving, letting like the great and powerful Lazaro lead and stuff like that? Obviously, we have May and Isaac in the suits again, and they're like, oh, it kind of brings back memories. And she's like, yeah, it's smelly in here. He's like, have you done this before? And they're like, look at each other, and they're nodding, yeah. And he's like, successfully? They turn to each other, so the fact of the matter is like, holy crap, there's Alita's mom, and they come over and everything, and they're like, oh yeah, we're bringing this prisoner down here, and yada yada yada. Fight ensues, and just like they end up killing all the guards, and Alita's their mom. It's like, we're friends of your daughter Alita. It's like Alita, and she's like, what? Eldaya. She changed her name, and Isaac's like, I know, like, yeah, I told her about it before, but that daughter of yours, she's very stubborn. So, and it's like, wait, my daughter's alive and everything. So obviously hearing that makes her very ecstatic, because obviously I guess the entire time she's never known. I mean, they would make a point not to let her know that her daughter's still alive, because it would have given her hope. So they probably wanted her beaten down and broken. That was kind of the whole point, because she ends up admitting like the admirals kept her alive because it's like, once again, you're kind of like, you're the queen, you were the king's wife, so you were side by side with him. So out of anyone's crimes, the king's not here to suffer for it, so we probably wouldn't have executed him, probably would have kept him alive too. So in his stead, you're going to stay alive as kind of a representation of the monarchy, kind of make you suffer and watch everything you kind of thought build up and everything gets destroyed. I think it's actually kind of interesting how they bounce back in between, like I said, the time frames and stuff like that, especially like when we got like 22 years ago, and everything. And then there's the whole situation of like, it's a young Alita, and it's like her dad's there, it's like, oh, birthday present and everything. He's like, I know we promised not to do the birthday present thing, but Alita's mom's like, no, it's about everything going down on the planet, the protests and stuff like that. Her father had a very like heavy-handed, like iron fist approach to the whole situation of like, we can't let them think we're merciful. Like, we can't show weakness, because if we show mercy, it's going to look like we're weak, and that like no punishment will be full, like going through for what they're doing. So he was kind of feeding into why people hated the monarchy in the first place, because they're like, the monarchy can be very bloody and stuff like that. So his wife was asking like, let's not go down that approach. But he kind of made it clear he's the king and everything. He's like, you or my wife be by my side. So it's just kind of like, it's almost kind of like a, I think it's, it's kind of like, I'm the one with the power here. You just kind of accept my choices, and you kind of ride or die with me type of situation. So it's like, let's not get into politics with our daughter and everything. The moment they set that up, I immediately was like, you killed your husband. Because like, we could see in that instance, it's kind of supposed to show how tyrannical he can be. And I was like, Dad's, you probably killed, because it's actually, on the grand, like, it's because I was like, oh, that kind of sucks, because I was like, because we never really found out how he died, and I was like, you killed him, didn't you? I was like, especially the more the episode went on, I was like, oh, you definitely killed him, especially because we see her meeting with like other generals and stuff like that, because they're trying to like, it's like, okay, like you have to try and convince the king to do something else, but she's like, I can't, like, he won't listen. But then like, oh, wait, these are Eldarians who are locked up prisoners because they were protesters. Lo and behold, who was one of them? None other than Lazaro himself. And it's like, okay. I was like, that's interesting. And it's like, well, because he's a Marquis' son, they are not our enemy, so we have to we need to let him go, because his family's not our enemy, which I'm like, the irony behind that. And it's something her mom said countless times. Your choices have consequences. Because of her, she put Lazaro in the position he's in right now. So if she had never saved him that day, who knows how, granted, things could have still played out the way they did, but who knows how vastly different things would be if it was, because Lazaro played a key role. He wasn't the only one, but he played a crucial part in bringing down the monarchy and stuff like that, so there's a whole, complicated nature to that whole situation. But I even love, like, obviously, Aleda runs into some dude and she's got her knives out and the dude kind of pulls out the blade. He starts swinging it around. I'm like, is he about to just get shot out of nowhere? But instead he gets stabbed from behind. Because I was about to say it's very Indiana Jones. Like, it's interesting because I want to say it's one of like it's the third Indiana Jones, right? I'm not well versed in Indiana Jones. I only know this because I've seen the commercial of this scene where the dude's like swinging his sword, and then Indy just pulls out his gun and just shoots the dude like that. I think there's been plenty of things that kind of like parody that, but I think this was supposed to be, you know, something in that regard. But like her mom just come up and stabbed the poor bastard from behind. I'm like, oh, sucks for him. I also love, like, there was a whole thing about like Lazarus once again bringing comedy to your villains, where he was kind of like, you know, it's like, you know, you got all my stuff. He's like, yeah, you got all your stuff, your belongings packed away, your clothes, a fresh pair of underwear, and those videos you want. He was like, that will be all. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, and he's like, oh, I'm about to go watch this. And he finds out about it later. He's like, and he smashes his guys. He's like, well, now it kind of ruined the watching it. Now I can't even just watch this anymore. So it was just, like I said, just giving comedy moments to your villains. I like that. But obviously Aleda's, you know, reunited with her mom and everything, and there was people coming up, and Isaac and I think Amay were pushing him away, like, come on, they're having a moment right here. And it's the whole thing of them taking off the suits and everything, and you know, Aleda's mom is like, oh, you've grown up so much, and Isaac laughs, and Amay slaps him like, come on, dude. He's like, almost like, yeah, sorry. So it's a whole situation of like, okay, so what do we do now? It should have been kind of like, I kind of saw where things were going immediately the moment, you know, Aleda was like, okay, we got to destroy this Stirzad. And her mom's like, no, we need this Stirzad. It's the only way to bring order again. It's like, no, mom, this is a weapon that's too powerful. Like, you know, if we don't destroy it, it can easily slip into someone else's. And this is a weapon that's too powerful for anyone, though. That's too much power for. And like, the moment she said that, I was like, your mom, I was like, okay, it's interesting. And this is what I thought was fascinating. I kind of threw out a theory last episode of like her mom's going to take this Stirzad, just because I'm like, oh, maybe she wasn't the person you thought she was. So I thought it was going to be a thing of like, oh, it's like, oh, she planned on taking the throne the entire time. It's not the same thing. It became a necessity because for her, it's like Aleda couldn't see. Her thing has always been that Aleda can't see the bigger picture because you're putting one above many. It's like in this case, she is putting the many before the one. You're asking her to put herself in a position to rule over people with this Stirzad. Like, you're talking about controlling people, getting rid of people's free will, especially after everything Aleda's kind of been through over her life surviving. She's learned, you know, just, you know, she's been around enough people to let people just be people. Yeah, people suck, but people are good at the same time. So it's like you take away that free will. It's so interesting because like the timing, you know, everything like comic book shows and stuff like that. Obviously Legends of Tomorrow dealt with this. So same very subject. So it's just kind of interesting. But obviously it's a thing of like, oh, we need to destroy the Stirzad. And obviously they're going to try and find the lab and everything. And I love that at one point Isaac's like, all right, we got to find a way to kill this Infinity Stone. I was like, wait, what? And everyone's looking like, what? And he's like, you know, I mean, he's like, well, I guess, you know, that's kind of a terrible example to use because what is, you know, the Stirzad's like this great power or whatever. And it's like, what are the Infinity Stone? Magic stones? He's like, whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. He's like, it's legally distinct. I'm like, I love it. I got giddy about that. I was like, hell yes. I was like, I love me some inside jokes, some wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I was like, that's really good. I like that a lot. Because you also think about it, like they've never actually specified what year it is. It's like a very vague time frame. It's like Killjoys and Dark Matter. Both of those shows took place in I don't think they ever specify like what year. So it's always been like, oh, 8 years ago from present time. We've never explained what, like, because so for example, who knows, like from where Isaac's from, it could have already been like 2030. So, but also he says stone, because I think in the comic books, they're known as gems, as the Infinity Gems. I think, I could be mistaken. But I think they're only called stones in the movies. I think in the comic books they're called. So that's why I feel like he's referencing them. You know, obviously the Infinity Stones have been a part of the, you know, MCU for a while. So it's like, you know, I mean, it's a thing of like, why are you reading too much into like a you know, just kind of like a haha joke? But it's like, no, it kind of gets you thinking about it because like, what time frame are we in? Is this like the future, or is this kind of like, you know, because obviously he's been off of Earth for 4 years, but it's like, well, by then, like, obviously the Infinity Stones had popped up in the MCU movies. Like I said, getting real nerdy and technical in this. It's just interesting when you think about it. Nevertheless, it becomes a situation of like, obviously it's like everyone's got to, you know, split up. Obviously Aleda wants to draw Lazaro out. And I even love at one point, like, it's like, oh yeah, you talk about all the stuff you've been through. Tell him about this time. And the home dude was like, having a moment, almost like just like, you know what, you're right. It's like glad to see that you're getting this whole point. But obviously, May and Aleda kind of saying their goodbyes to each other. Like, it's like kind of, So obviously they go looking for the lab and everything, and I love it. It's being like, oh yeah, he's like, this is, it's like, really? Like, if the lab was really down here, wouldn't that be very cliche? And lo and behold, they find the evil science lab in the, down below, and he's like, well, forget I said anything. And they run into the scientist. I love, he's like, hey, it's you. He runs over and hugs her, and she's hitting him, and then punching him. He's like, ow. He's like, no, it's good. Like, we know each other. So it's like, it's a situation of, obviously, Aleda's mom knows so much about the series, which I think is so interesting, because obviously it's supposed to be something under the royal but that's what I'm saying, like Hath and everything, was that surely just his plan and stuff like that, or was the plan always for Aleda to get the Stirzad at some point? That's what I think. I don't think that was just Hath doing that on his own. I think that was always her mom's plan. I think that's what she was training her for too. Maybe not. I don't know. But like, obviously, like I said, like cutting back and forth, like there's that moment like, oh, here's your pet is going to die because you don't have it in its tank, and because Hath has to bring it out to her, and he's reluctant to do it, but she's kind of forcing him, like, Aleda's mom. So it's like, if you put him in that water, the ecosystem will die. So you have to choose the others. It's meant to be a lesson. I'm like, it's such a cruel lesson that you're trying to teach your daughter, but the whole point is she's trying to teach her daughter these moments now, because eventually the throne is going to be hers. So it's like, you need to learn this stuff now so you can be a good leader. But when it's said and done, like, she's not doing it immediately, and it's kind of, all right, she passed it. So Hath is going to go get the tank because it's hidden, but Aleda dumps it in there anyway, and she's like, I don't care, I don't want to be queen. But it turns out, like, it's not poisonous. Only thing is, like, her mom's like, it would have messed up my flowers and stuff. Like, that's the only thing. But he's like, give her time, she'll grow. But it's like, she doesn't have time, because it's like, she was kind of expediting everything to get her husband off the throne, to put her daughter on the throne, which is also, you can almost look at how messed up that is, because it's almost like, you kind of speak for your daughter. So I guess it's almost a thing of like, especially being as young as she is, it's almost like putting yourself on the throne anyway plenty of people do that, because it's like, oh, I'm gonna put this young person in the throne so I can be their advisor, whispering in their ears. It's like, you kind of put yourself in that position, like, because for her, everything she did was for the purpose of it was for the greater good, So, it comes down to that. And I love Aleda ends up, calling for Lazaro and everything. And I don't know why, I thought that was kind of a badass moment. The camera circling her, being like, Lazaro, come and face me. But then, like, she's waiting. And it's like, hello? And there's just nothing. And she just keeps waiting. And she's doing stuff where she's like, turning her back and then turning around really quickly with the gun and everything. Like, she's just bored out of her mind. She's like, hell, where are you, Lazaro? I was like, oh, this is happening. Then a maid comes to get her, but it turns out the moment a maid showed up, I was like, she's under control, isn't she? She stabs Aleda, and it's like, it's sadly almost, poetic, in a very tragic way, that it would be a maid that ends up doing that. It's actually interesting too, because her brother Chaz is on Areopa 2 looking for her, trying to gain, getting the place back under control. The lady that they met a couple episodes back, she was the lady that was helping those people who were cannibals. She shows up, but she just came there looking for a gun. So I'm like, oh, you're just like, it's so interesting that we just see you pop up and you're just doing this off on your own. So I guess it's just kind of like, I came here to get this gun. I'm like, what the hell is that plot point? That's just walking away with a gun, like, and everything. Like, what the hell is that going to turn into? I guess she's just gonna like, in the craziness that is this world now, it's like, well, I'm gonna just go do my thing, because like no one can really hold her back. So I guess it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of free reign. Like, I guess she's basically like a hired gun. She's a mercenary. So it's kind of like, oh, this is my time to shine. This is going to be my, so it's going to be interesting to see how, that ends up playing out. But it turns out, because, then, Lazaro trying to mess with Aleda, like, ends up getting this truth revealed about, like, oh, your mom poisoned your dad, and so it's a situation of, like, even he was like, the fact of the matter is, I spent so much time pointing all my hate towards you, but I shouldn't, because much like me, you were just a pawn in this whole situation. But the fact of the matter is, I still can't let you survive. So it's like, hey, pull out the knife. But in that moment, you could tell her eyes didn't glow green. So it's like, oh, she's not being controlled by the Stirzad, so it's like she can't fight it. I didn't even talk about it either, especially because this is kind of a last-ditch effort, because the general, literally all of the loyalists and the rebellion are dead. because Lazaro got to them first and had them turn their guns on each other. I was like, wow, I didn't see that coming. That was an interest. I was like, when she was like, I can't, I was like, wait, did you set an emotion already and you can't stop it? And it's like, wait, it's like, I can't believe that happened. I wasn't expecting that. That's a shit ton of people that died, like, which now is even sadder because like 99.99% of the loyalists that, you know, were still around are dead now. That was like dead, all that kind of undone in that moment, you know? So it's like, holy crap. But luckily, you know, Aleda's not affected by it. So she knocks the Stirzad away from Lazaro, and everyone's going after him. And obviously he ends up shooting the scientist, and she's dying, and he's like, it's going to be okay. She's like, I'm dying, not stupid. So she's like, I don't got no fancy final words. So he says, just kill that bastard, and just dies. And you see it hit Isaac. It's like, oh, that sucks, because, you know, they were hoping to save her and everything, because obviously she reluctant, because like this whole thing was like, she was building him a ship that would basically let him use the Stirzad to go anywhere. And obviously that immediately goes, wait, anywhere kind of makes you think like getting him home. But then like, and you can even tell like Aleda's mom was using it, being like, oh, you're from another galaxy, almost like you don't want to destroy this Stirzad, because what about getting you home? But he's like, no, Aleda said this has to be destroyed, it has to be destroyed, this is bigger than me. And May's looking at him like, oh, I'm so proud of you putting the needs of the galaxy before your own, you know. So I thought that was kind of a sweet moment, which is also interesting till we actually think about it. Like I made that Marvel reference and everything, it's like, right, because Guardians of the Galaxy literally has ties to multiple ways to stones and stuff like that. So obviously the one that's in the movie, but also obviously because it all connects to Thanos. But it's just interesting because like I compared this show to like Guardians of the Galaxy meet Killjoy. So it's just I don't know, it's just kind of funny. Even more now that I'm thinking about it, I didn't really think about it that much at the time when I was watching it. But regardless, I just thought about it now. Nevertheless, turns into a full-blown showdown between Lazaro and Aleda. It turns into a full-blown fist fight, which I'm like, hell yeah. Like, I like that it came down to just like, it wasn't just like a shoot and done. It was like, nah, it had to be like a drag out knuckle brawl. Like, you know, I love the whole situation and just like, and I think it's an interesting parallel that they create between them of like, the fact of the matter is, you know, you were kind of, you know, you had to live out the legacy your father created for you. Much like him, he had to he had to deal with his father's legacy. She's kind of having to deal with the ramification of hers. And for him, it's a situation of like, you know, because Aleda is like, okay, you came after my dad for what he did, but you never gave me a chance to see what kind of ruler I could have been. Because obviously she had a very different perspective than her mom or her dad about how to rule. But to be fair, you never know. Like, given enough time, her mom could have kind of, you know, removed that side of her and made her more like her dad, or rather more like her, but with the power of her dad, you know? It's like, oh, your dad didn't listen to my wisdom, but like me, I can instill that on you. You're young enough that I can mold you into like, because obviously she couldn't, you know, pass on, you know, her mentality, her consciousness onto her husband, but she can to Aleda, you know? But, you know, it's like this nasty brawl, things are getting like mad, bloody and stuff like that. But obviously Lazaro is kind of like, you know, like the fact of the matter is you control people. And she's like, it's ironic coming from the dude who's literally controlling people with the Stirzad. But he's like, I never used it on the people. I was going to let them have their choice and everything, you know? So it's just like, once again, I'm wondering, does he know that like she's the reason he's still alive, you know? I mean, maybe there's even more reason to keep her alive. Because like, oh, technically you kept me alive when I was in a jail cell because of your husband, you know? But, even at one point, it seems like he like broke or at least dislocated her arm at one point. It was like things were like super bloody. But then it like she gets the win in the end, and he's like, please don't. And then like I love that she shoots him, and then it freeze frames, and she's like, you talk too much. And then like when she shows up later on, she's like, yeah, I saved the day. It's like, you did. He's like, I want to know all the gore. She's like, yeah, you should have heard me. I hit him with all these one-liners. She's like, really? Let me know. And she's like, this. Or that birthday gift sucks. And then Isaac's like, context is everything. And she's just kind of like, yeah. I was just like, I love that. Like none of her bits like landed because it was just a thing of like, Oh, what? Oh, right. You weren't there for the context of the conversation, but he's like, no, I trust you. I'm sure it was good. It was great. And I was like, oh, I love that. I love that. That's just been a thing about like, oh yeah, like coming up with these one-liners and stuff like that. Because even earlier in the episode, she was like, have a nice trip. She's like, oh, she's like, oh man, that was good. I love that she like peps herself up because of that and everything. But nevertheless, obviously they have a plan to destroy the Stirzad, but basically by using it, the energy generated from using it to destroy the Stirzad, and they plan on using that as a means to get Isaac home. And there's almost like this heartfelt moment, and it's just kind of like, at the end of the day, he's like, trying to say like it might not work. She's like, I hope it does. She's also like, because that means I'll finally be able to get rid of you. Because even her at the end of the day is kind of, she's sad, to see, it's like, wait, this might be the end. Like after everything we've been through, Isaac, this might be it. Then there's a conversation with her mom. And Lada's like, let's just talk about this later. And she's like, okay, and hugs her and everything. It's like, we need to keep the Stirzad. And she's like, Mom, no. She's like, well, in the wrong hands, yes, it could be a weapon, it could be evil, but in our hands, we'll make peace. She's like, there can never be any peace with a weapon like that, because she's like, literally everyone thinks they're doing the right thing with this thing. Look at, even, you can say whatever you want to about it. In his mind, the fact is, Lazaro thought he was doing the right thing, thought he was being the hero, So it's a situation of like, no one thinks they're in the wrong. And it's like, what does absolute power does? It corrupts absolutely. So it's like, we're going to get Isaac home and then we're going to destroy this thing. That's the end of the story. Like, this thing isn't going to stay. You can tell about the look on her mom. I was like, it's not going to end well. So I was like, but what are you going to do? It's not like you're going to kill your own daughter. So I'm like, how this situation going to play out? So Isaac and, Elle have like, their heart to heart and everything. And, just after, everything that they've been through, I thought was, he's like also bringing up the whole May thing, like he's like, oh, I've known for a while and everything. So obviously it's the whole thing of like, because for her, she's like, I feel like I feel like the grown up in this situation, I have to be the parent. He's like, yeah, that's always a hard to say for a kid to find out that like you think your parent has all the answer, but then you get to that point, you're like, oh, they didn't know shit. They literally knew as much as I did. They were figuring things out along the way. So it's like, but it's like, you don't have to worry about it. You'll be a good dad, trust me. So it's just like, obviously, he's sad because it's like, I'm a miss you, and she's like, she's trying to fight back her tears too, and it's like, oh, and just they're, and but at the same time, it's like her mom, like home dude that's with her mom, takes the Stirzad and they get on a ship, and she's like, I'm gonna go and build, rebuild all this. Like this can't be the end. And so they leave just as Chaz gets there, and it's like, holy shit, a May was on that. And it's like, where did they go? Earth. And I'm like, okay. So this in itself potentially could give us also a line of like, okay, so that was a nice twist I didn't expect to see coming, where it's like, oh, they're not going to rebuild this. It's kind of, I guess it's too late in this galaxy, because it's like, oh, everything's chaotic and it's just kind of dumb. But it's like, we'll go to a new galaxy and we will, well, I don't know. Like, what do you plan on doing? Like, I mean, because the coordinates were set to Earth, so they're going to end up in the Milky Way galaxy. But the thing is, do they plan to do? Well, with the Stirzad, they could literally go to any galaxy, so it doesn't have to just stop there. Eventually, we can be going multi-galaxies where they try to, rein stuff in. But now they're at least heading there with a May on the ship, so I'm sure May's going to try and stop them. But now it's like, your mom has kind of become the sort of antagonist. It's almost like, once again, that complicated thing of like, who's in the right? Once again, it comes down from perspective. It's like, her mom is very much like light right now, and Aleda is kind of like Elle, if you want to use a Death Note kind of as an example. So it's a thing of like, once again, her mom thinks she's 100% in the right. Like, it's like, for one, it's like, I've sacrificed so much to get here, and but it's like, I mean, all that talk about you not being royal, so you can't take over the mantle. But for her, I guess it's like, no, I might not be royal, but I need to do what I need to do now, because I can't trust my daughter to do what's necessary. It's like, this is for the greater good of it. It's like, who are you? Who put you in charge to make that decision for other people? So obviously, like I said, the galaxy's kind of going a little nuts. So everything, all the leaders are dead. So it's like not just Areopa. I'm sure every planet's going to be like nuts because there's no one to take over. So it's like it's going to be like the Wild Wild West. And obviously, there's this whole situation with the May. So it's like, what do you gotta have to. I mean, how do you track her down? Because literally, apparently, this was like the only other way. Apparently, there are other ships that could get you there, but it's like no one in this universe, except for some people, except for the Clue episode where they were like, oh, this is how you get. It's like other than that, like, there's no one who really knows how to get to the Milky Way galaxy. But the point I was also making is like this would also let us know, like, bring up that conversation had, like, where in the on Earth, like, what time frame is it? Like, is this like, oh, this is 2045, 2099, so on and so forth, or is it like present day 2020? It makes you wonder about stuff like that. I mean, because that'd be really interesting too, because that would basically mean like potentially leaving this galaxy behind and going purely to the Milky Way. That'd be interesting, especially with all the alien stuff, and so it's like, would you be leaving that on behind just to end up back on Earth? Because I think it presents a very interesting aspect to Isaac's story, because he's like, well, got to save his planet, and obviously his wife and child are there, so it brings up a lot of interesting directions things could go. At the time of me recording this, it hasn't been confirmed whether or not Syfy is renewing or canceling Vagrant Queen. I hope the show gets another season. I'd love to see where it goes. I get it. Like, people have even hit me up being like, obviously the show's not for them. And that's 100% okay. Like, not everything's going to be okay, something you're interested in. I'm really interested in this show, like, but I'm not saying it's for everybody. It's just, sadly, the show's in this very complicated situation because I don't know if it's 100% well received. Even if I like it, obviously I don't speak for everyone. And obviously I don't, I try not to pay too much attention to ratings, but obviously that's important because like how many people watch a show determines whether or not a channel will put more money behind the show. There's also this whole thing about the show moving. Like, obviously it went from Friday to Thursday, like out of nowhere. Like, no other shows on Syfy really do that. Usually when they stick to a night, they stick to a night, especially because Friday nights, it's kind of where like a lot of their shows have been. Dark Matter, Haven, I'm fairly sure with like on Fridays. I want to say Winona Earp, and Van Helsing has kind of bounced around in some regards. But Killjoys, like a lot of stuff has found success on Fridays. For them to move it to Thursday makes you think like maybe because the show wasn't doing that well, and then I don't know. Like a lot of people already kind of saw a lot of the writing on the wall because of that. But I'm still hopeful. Fingers crossed. I really hope this show comes back because I really dig this show and I love to see where they would take us in the second season with that crazy ass finale and that whole situation, that Aleda's mom and everything going to Earth and tracking down a May and just what all that would mean. I'd love to see where it take us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.